Thanks, Chanel. Hey guys, happy Friday. Thank you for being here. Today's a really fun class. We've got my favorite stitch is a herringbone stitch, and it's the first one I ever learned. Actually, it's the first bead weaving stitch that I ever picked up, and it's the one I always go to when I just want to create something that I actually enjoy making. That, you know, it's a methodical stitch. And even though it is the same steps repeated, it's one of those ones where each one you're kind of guiding the bead a little bit to sit exactly in the right position. So you get your tension right and you get into this flow with creating them. And so I think that's part of the joy of it for me. And I keep coming back to this like color striping designs or like color blocking. So you see a lot of that in the jewelry that I share. Because it's just what I enjoy doing. I like taking a bunch of tubes that I think look cool together, or might even just be just totally different and original, and just throw them out on the mat and color block them either lengthwise or in stacked blocks and just see what happens, right? So that's what this stitch can do for you. It's one of the ones that is considered beginner friendly, and I think that all beginners will love it. It's once you get the hang of it, it's going to be something that you just kind of find second nature. So last week we did a intro to ladder stitch. So for all the new folks to seed beading, we went through step by step. Here's a ladder stitch, and we did a whole project. It was all just ladder stitch. And so the first step of this project is to create a ladder stitch base so that you can build your herringbone off of that. And so that's what we're going to do first. And then we'll just start building our herringbone. So here on my mat, what I've got out are the supplies for this project. And it's not that you don't have to have the exact same supplies that I do. You could be using any colors you want. You can also work with any sizes that you like. So I'm just going to show you guys real quick what I've got here. And the two designs that you see here, this is the one that's on the cover, and it is a much wider design. It takes a little longer to create. And then this one is the one that's in the diagrams. So if you follow the diagrams, you'll get one this size, and it's a little faster. You know, it's easier to demo. But my goal with today is to share the technique itself and give you the choice of how many columns do I want to do. And you can make as many as you like. You can make any pattern that you like. All of this stuff is just sky's the limit. So the technique is really the focus, but the designs, I hope you find them inspiring too. And there's lots of different spins you can put on those. So for the beads, again, any beads are going to work for you. This is so versatile. I'm using size 8 because they're a pretty good size, easy to see, and they stitch up really nicely in a herringbone. And then I also have out some size 10s, and I only need those just to make these little loops that connect the clasp. And you could just do those with 8s if you wanted. So I just thought the 10s look nice. And I'm going to stitch it on Wildfire. I'll use this color today, the black color, because it is going to make it easier to demo. So you can actually see the thread and what the thread is doing. But in all of these designs, I matched my thread color to the bead that is on my edge. So in this case, I was using Frost Wildfire. But if you were using, like, for example, if you wanted this blue to be the side, I had an idea of doing one like this. But you can also think about doing some contrast, because the thread can be a beautiful element in your design. And in this version that I'm going to teach you of herringbone, there are different versions out there. The version that I like, and the one I'm going to show today, it does put that thread on the side, which I think is pretty. And, you know, we go to all the trouble of buying pretty colored threads, so why not see it, right? So that's my feeling about that. But that said, there are lots of methods out there that show how to hide the thread and do turns and stuff. So those things are out there to find, and we might teach them in the future too. So they're totally up to you. At the end of the handout, you'll notice that I put a little extra section about doing an odd count. I'm going to talk about that when we get started. But herringbones typically work in an even number because the columns have 2 beads each. So if you had an odd number, you'd be short a bead for one of your columns, but odd count's completely possible. It's just an extra little step. We get time at the end, I'll show it. Otherwise, we'll make it a separate class. We'll do a whole class on just odd count. But I feel like it's easy enough that you could, once you've learned the even count, you'll glance at that diagram and you'll be like, oh yeah, got it. And so it's there in case you want to jump ahead on that. And what else? Let's see, we talked about thread. We've got I'm using a size 10 beading needle because this design, we're using some beads with really good hole diameters, so you can get away with a little bit bigger needle. And then optional stuff, embellishments, clasps. I used some bead on chain here. I used some oval jump rings, and I also made myself some knotted head pins, which I used to kind of dangle little embellishment beads. And these beads, if you like them, they're in the handout. You can find the SKU number for that, so you can find these at Michael's. But I thought it was cool because this has all the colors in it that I used in the design, and it was actually, this was my inspiration for the palette. I was just looking in the Michael's craft store at the wall, and I saw all of these like beautiful lamp work, kind of like lentil-y beads, and they had these swirls of color. And I just picked one up that I liked and looked at what colors were in it, and then just matched them to my seed bead tubes. Just turned around at the seed bead wall and looked, and there it was. So that's what inspired the whole grouping of like palettes for our classes this month. So I'm going to kind of dive in, move these out of the way here. Come back to that one later to finish it. And as far as colors, again, any colors you want. I'm going to stick to the colors that are in the diagram for so my newbies can follow along easily. I'm going to build this one. And so let's just start with our ladder stitch. I'm going to need purple. So there's my color A. Oh, I lay out my beads as like color A, color B. This one isn't labeled ABC, but I'm just going to lay them out in the order that they're in the picture. And here's some blue. And feel free to like change up what I'm doing here with colors that you're using. There are options in the handout for 2 different purples, 2 different blues. There's like these matte, kind of halo-y. They give the piece a lot of depth. So I kind of mixed it up here where I used the shadow and halo together with my purples. It really can add like an element of texture to your design if you mix finishes. And that's what I did there. Okay, so I've got my 3 colors. I'm going to get my thread. And again, I'm using the black Wildfire 0.006. You can use any color you want. And in the diagrams or the instructions, it says to cut about 90 inches. And I always tell people, just go ahead and cut whatever working length works for you best as far as your arm length. If you cut it too long, you're going to be having to do this double down where you have to come back and pull multiple times. And that just makes it less pleasant to create your piece. Adding thread is not hard. And we'll show that too. Okay, so I just cut a comfortable working length for me. And I'm going to go ahead and get some pliers. So I'm going to flatten the end of my thread. And this is just so I can get it through a needle easier. See how it kind of goes a little bit like a little paper thin. That's the cool thing about Wildfire. You can make it a lot easier to get your needle threaded that way. And again, this is a size 10 beading needle. And I'm going to pull down about, so depending how much you cut, if you cut a full 90 inches, go ahead and pull down maybe even like 25 to 30 inches of that so that you're not having to pull such a long strand through. I'm going to pull down about 10, 12 inches of mine. And so first thing we're going to do is we're going to ladder stitch this pattern. And you'll notice there's 2 beads stacked. It's really stabilizing in a ladder stitch. Last week we used bugles to stabilize it, but it's really stabilizing to do stacks because they make it just easier to get the beads to sit where the holes are facing up and the sides are like parallel to each other. So you'll see a lot of designs, especially like brick stitch earrings and things like that, that will start with a ladder stitch stack of 2. So it's a really good thing to pick up. And that's what we're gonna do here. So I'm gonna first pick up 2 of my white beads, and then I'm gonna pick up 2 purple and do a box stitch for that, which is just looping back through them to make them sit in like a square shape. And then we'll add 2 more. And we'll connect it back, come through, add 2 blue, connect that back. So it just does this the whole way around until you get to the other side, and then we'll do a step up. And I left about a 12-inch tail, and that is so I can do my little loop of size 10 beads at the end and do our clasps. So roughly 10 to 12 inches there as a tail. there's my 2 white beads and my 2 purple beads. I'm going to come up through the 2 white beads. We will eventually be going through all of them, but it helps to stack them if you just go through the first 2 beads at this step and pull it together. So you get that little stack. And then I like to kind of pinch the beads like that in my hand to hold the shape of that square as I come back and go through the next 2 purple beads. And so you get a nice little laddered square there. Feel free to double that up. If you think it's loose or if you want to tighten it up, you can just go through all the beads again. You'll get a nice little secure start for that. Okay, so I'm going to pick up 2 more purple. That's the next in my pattern. And when you ladder stitch, just kind of a quick recap of last week, you're going through the beads in the opposite direction of your exiting thread. So my thread's coming out this side over here. I want to go through on the top side here. And that's going to switch every time we add the beads because we're going to change direction. You'll see just naturally as we loop around, your thread ends up going in different positions. So went through those. I'm going to turn and come up through here and pull tight. Go back and reinforce it. This reinforcing step is optional. I'm going to do it on this sample so that I can maybe match what a beginner would want to do, because it's hard to get these threads to be, it's an art form really to get the tension exactly perfect that first trip through. And a really good way to just kind of, as a beginner, to just get there is to just go ahead and go through them twice. And there's no problem with that because of the size 8 bead with the 0.006 Wildfire, you're going to have no trouble getting through it. Even with the next step, we're going to go through it again. So it's still going to work out. And so now I'm switching to blue because that's the next color in my pattern. And again, I'm going to go through the last beads in the opposite direction of my exiting thread. Or not the side that it's not exiting from. Actually going the same direction. But. So there's those. Those are attached there. Back down through there. Let's reinforce it. And you'll pick up a lot of, your own preferences as you do stitches like this for your hand position. Some people like to work flat on the mat when they're first trying it out. I've always been someone that holds the work a little bit when I get going. So that's what you'll see me doing a lot just without really thinking about it. But that doesn't mean it's the only way, of course, because there's lots of different ways that people like to do these stitches, and you'll discover yours as you get going. So there's one. I think holding for me gives me more aid with the tension, getting the tension right on those first few rows. And there's those. So I'm going to switch back to purple now. It's the next one on my pattern. Let's go back through. And if I forgot to mention earlier, if you're having any questions about these steps or any of the next steps coming up, feel free to put those in the chat. And if I miss it, Carmi and Millie will shout out to me that there's a question. So here's this one. And then I have just the edge beads to go. Here's my reinforcing. Okay, the last set is coming up. And I'm going to go through one more time. And sometimes your tail will get caught. Just find the end that's moving and get that loose. It gets better as you get higher up from where the tail is left. Another thing I was going to share about the tail. Once we built a few rows, we could even do it now if we wanted to, but you can go ahead and add your end. Let me show you what I mean. You can finish one side first. So meaning just getting that tail out of the way and doing your loop. That's an option. And then just do the rest of your stitching. Sometimes I do that. I usually do it after I've done a few rows. But it's just something to think about as you get going. If you feel like your tail is just really bugging, like it's getting in the way a lot. Okay, so we've got our ladder stitch done. It's all ready to go. And as I was mentioning at the beginning of class, this is your foundation. This is your choice of how many columns you want, and you're not stuck with it. You can do any number of columns. You can do, let's see, here we've got 8 columns. You could do 10. You could do just 4. You could even just do 2. That's a different stitch, sort of. It's a single column, which has a little different step up, but it's possible to do any even count in the method that I'm about to show. But we will have, I believe, given how we're doing right now, we'll have a little time at the end if you guys want to talk about odd count. So I think we can get there. So I'm going to check in with Carmi really quick. How are we doing on ladder stitch? Everyone's good. I know we covered it last week, but before I keep
Danielle, no questions on ladder.
None. All right. All right. So
let's head right into herringbone.
Let's go. All right. So here we go. I've got this ready. I'm going to do a step up. And so again, as I mentioned earlier, my step up is a style, and it is not the only way to do it. There's other ways you can do a step up where your thread doesn't show, but I have a love of this method. So what I'm doing is I'm going from, see, I'm exiting from that bead at the bottom. I'm going to go through the bead above it. And this does a couple things that I like. The first thing it does is it evens out this bottom bead, makes it stay nice and flush with my work. I also really like seeing my thread. It's I think it's a nice design element. If I don't want it to be the, the loud part of my design, I'll match my color of thread. But the other reason I like to do it this way is as you get going, as you start to create your piece, this is going to give you a really flowy design. It bends, and there's another method you can do where you do a turn and it hides your thread, but I find that it locks my edges in and you lose the herringbone V shape on the sides in a design like that. It's preference, and it's only noticeable to you, the stitching designer. No one else out there really notices it, but I feel it, and it's just my preference. So that's the one that I'm sharing. But with the knowledge that there's other ways to do it, I just wanted to make sure I'm honest about that. There's so many other ways you can do this. So I've got my step up done. I'm going to pick up my next colors. And so from here on out, the way we're going to work is we're going to match the color that we're picking up. There's no real pattern for this because I decided just to do like a stripe. But like if you pick up the color that you're exiting from and then the color you're going into, you're always going to match your color pattern. This color you're coming out of, pick it up, and then pick up the color you're going into, and so on, all the way to the end. And when you get to your last one, you do that step up. So let's pick up color I'm exiting, white, color I'm going into, purple. And I'm going to head down through here. Going down through purple. This is the first row, and I'm just going through both of those beads in a ladder stitch. In the next rows, we'll be going through just the row below, which will be a single bead. But here, go ahead and go through your whole ladder. You can go through just the one bead, but it's tricky to get there. Like, they're tight, especially since I reinforced this row. It can actually be kind of tricky to get just through one bead. So go ahead and go through both. Here's the next one. And then you're turning and you're coming up through that adjacent set, right? Come up through there. And I'm going to get the blue bead on my purple bead and down to the next one. So you see each of these is a column of 2. And come up through the next one. And we'll get a purple white bead. All right, and I'm going to go down through both of the beads on my edge. I'm just ignoring my tail for now. That's this one. Just kind of get that out of the way. I'm going to do that same little step up again. And it's going to match what I've got over here on the other side. It's going to step up from the side. Go ahead and go through both beads above. And that is your row 1 done. And so you see that little V stacking? That's where they get the name herringbone from. because it has that look of like the little fishbone pattern. So really pretty and really fun to come up with different designs for. So I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to make another row. I've got my next color I'm coming out of, color I'm going into. And here I'm just going to go down through the previous row that I made. So down through the purple here. And notice when I pull, I'm pulling pretty tight and they're not doing what I want. They're kind of just sitting there like that. If you just do that, just kind of use your fingernail to nudge them. You won't have to do that every time, but you might have to do it on a couple every row. It really kind of, I notice the further along I get, the more they just kind of pop into place. It's always kind of satisfying when they do that, but they won't always, and you might have to help them a little bit. And that's part of the process that I think for me is, a little meditative, because it's just, you don't really have to think about it. Like there's no real pattern planning. There's a lot of motor memory, but I still have to pay a little bit of attention, like enough to look and see what's happening. So it can pull you out of your mind for a little bit, just to make sure they're all stacked. And it's really cool when they do. And when you see the big flowy bracelet that comes out, because you can make these cups super wide and they're very impressive looking. People are always like, whoa, that's gorgeous. I made one that was like 14 columns the other day and it got so many likes. Everyone was like, that's the coolest bracelet. Same exact stitch I'm doing right now. No difference. So there, I just went down through that last one in the row. And then you just come up through the one above it. So see, we're doing that same step up. We're exiting from the one we went down through, coming up to the last one we added. And you're going to see that thread on the side. And I like to flip it because I'm right-handed, so I'm always turning it to work from my left to my right. Let's see if it pops. Almost. Only had to help that one a little tiny bit. There's my blue. Another thing I noticed about this stitch is with the 11-0, it actually kind of 11-0 or 10-0 check, it kind of pops into place a little easier. There's the larger beads need a little more help. And like, especially if you try this with 6-0, you'll probably need to help most of those columns. But it still comes out really nice. Here's our step up. And these work up fast. You'll be done with a quarter of your bracelet within, 10 minutes or so once you get the hang of it. I'm gonna do one more row and then just check in with you guys. So if you have a question, go ahead and drop it in the chat. Or we'll keep rolling to the next thing.
Danielle, it's Carmi.
Hey.
I don't want to leave you alone because everyone's fine. So you don't have to worry. We don't have any questions on the sidebar. But since you asked, I just wanted to take 1 second to remind everyone, you've actually taught several really great herringbone classes already, including one with Crystal. And so everybody, don't forget, if you don't want to wait to Monday to watch this again, just go to Michael's YouTube page and just simply put in herringbone stitch, and you'll see all of the other classes that Danielle already taught.
Yeah, I love that Crystal one. That was a really fun one. And it had some cool endings to get those little strands to come together. We've done a few. They're really cool. And I think we also did an earring. This was a long time ago, but we did a fringe earring that started like this. And it was like a flower mosaic, an Italian mosaic of florals. That's out there with the pattern. It's not the best way to find that is probably from the blog, because you need the PDF. So if you go to blog.johnbead.com and you search for mosaic tile flower or herringbone flower, I think one was lavender. It was like lavender fields. It was actually this colorway kind of. And then there was another one that was like tiles of florals. What we did is we put a wire guardian on the top and we like stranded down with all these like.
Danielle, even Cindy, I even remembered the blue point earrings.
Oh yeah, blue point was odd count. Yeah. There's a lot of them out there, huh? You can tell it's my favorite stitch, right? Because I keep doing it in every class. Yeah. Caught me. That's true.
So Danielle, when you say it's your favorite stitch, is it literally you went to a beading class and learned this stitch and went down this road?
It's the first time I ever stitched a bracelet. Yeah, I learned it online. I had done, so my very first beading class ever was I learned to make one of those like wrap bracelets with leather where you're doing like a ladder in between. And I took that in a bead store. Because before that, really, I just done like mostly like wire kinds of jewelries and things like that. But this was really popular. It was really popular at the time to make those multi-wrap leather bracelets. And so I went and learned that. And then they had all these other inspiration pieces in like the window and on display. And that's how it happened for me. I went home and watched videos and
That was it.
that was it. Yeah, here I am. It was crazy.
Well, I'm going to refer to Herringbone as your lucky stitch now.
Oh, it definitely feels lucky to me. That's for sure. And it's just, it's gorgeous. I mean, look at how these look. They look so cool. I never get over how much they just look really neat. And peyote is beautiful. I love how peyote looks too, but just something about it. So that sounds like everyone's got this. Like they either recognize the herringbone process or I'm going to see if there's anyone in the chat who wants to see this more.
Nope, you're good, Danielle.
All right. So, well, how about we do this? Let's finish it. Let's do the little loops at the end. And then from there, if we've got extra time, we'll do more fun stuff. Just figure out. So I'm going to show you how to do this loop. I've got one here and it's a little bit variation in the colors that I chose. I did some of the matte purple next to it, and my center blue is a different blue, but it's the same exact stitch. I was just kind of changing my colors for interest. And I'm going to go ahead and put the ending on this one, and we can show putting the ending on the start with this one. Okay, so I'm going to get my size 10, which I hid over here somewhere. And you could use any size bead you like. This was just the one that I grabbed. I thought it looks cool. And when you do your last stitch, you'll be exiting from your last bead where you did your step up, right? We did our step here and exited here. So you need to get to the center. And the way that I built these is I put my loop kind of like I straddled not the exact center beads because I didn't want it to be a point in the center. I wanted it to be more like a, you know, kind of just like a larger loop that looks very, very pretty. So I put it out of the 4 center. So finding the center 4 and just choose the edge of those. So that's how I did that. But preference, you could do anything you like. So to get there, come down through the next bead without adding any beads. I didn't add anything. I'm just going to come down through this one. And then just like we would usually, just doing that step up. And your count is your kind of your preference, but it looks like here I did 8 beads. And so there's 4. And then at this point, you might want to figure out what your choice for a clasp is going to be. And if you need to put it on now, or if you can just do it later. So if you're doing one of these, like lobster claw type of clasp, and you're just going to use a jump ring, go ahead and just do this loop by itself for now, and we'll put the jump ring on at the end. But if you're using any other kind of clasp that doesn't have the ability to be opened, or for example, if you're using a closed or a soldered chain, I always get caught up by this. I finish my end and then I realize my chain doesn't open. I think this one does. I'm looking at this one a little closely to see, but yeah, this one has a seam. I believe this is a chain you can open if you're using what I put in the handout. But check your chain. Make sure you can open it. If you can't, you need to put it on now. Otherwise, just keep going. And so there's my 4. I'll just do 4 more. And I'm going to come down through. So skip the 2 middle ones. We're going to skip this one and this one, and go ahead and go down through the next one. And so there's your loop. And you'll want to weave around to get back there. There's lots of different ways you can do this. Probably the easiest, I think, is just to continue on your row and down through the next 2 beads over here. Flip that over and then doing my step up and then coming back over. And when you get here, just keep going through the loop again to reinforce it. And then come down. And I'm going to go back up through the next bead. So this is the one that's next in the row, and just come down to the next 2 over here. Turn around. And then I do a step up here. So this gives you a reinforced edge. It's like this whole ending is totally reinforced, and it's a nice secure way to end it. I'm going to do something here on my trip back. I'm going to reinforce this loop a 3rd time, but I don't want to go through just this top row anymore. I want to reinforce the row below it, which means I won't get any pulling here. I want to make sure that it is really secure. So I'm going to go down 2 beads. This is just optional. It's just a way to make your thread passes look less overlaid, and also to give them a little bit of strength connected to the row below. And go ahead and come up through those next 2. And let's go through this one more time. You could do that a 4th time if you wanted. I think you can get through it at least 4. But what I'm going to do over here is start to weave in. So going down to the next row. And from here, weaving in is the style that I like to use. I don't usually knot. A lot of people do, but my preference is to just go ahead and keep stitching through and following the thread path through a few rows until it's woven in really well. My thread's getting a little short. I'd forgotten I meant to show adding thread with this one, so we'll do it on the other sample. But as far as like, where do I go when I'm weaving in, it doesn't really matter where you stitch through. You just keep going until you run out of thread, or until you've gone through like 3 rows. And by that, I mean, maybe just made 3 turns. So you see, I'm kind of in a 3rd row down here, made a few turns, and it's getting a little short. So I'm going to go one more time up and let's go ahead and trim it. I think I can get through one more bead. Okay, so I'm going to show how to trim thread with scissors, but if you're using something else, like there's lots of different ways you can use a burner or something, but I'm going to use my scissors with some pressure to kind of make the thread pop back into the piece. So I'm going to push down with my scissors and pull up on the thread. And you'll see a lot of artists do it this way. It's a way to make your thread just kind of disappear back into the work. And so there's our loop on one side. And there's another trick I like to do. If you photograph your work a lot and you really just want to give it that little polished look, if you have some round nose pliers handy, you can use those to make the loop cleaner. And I do that a lot with my designs, because when you photograph, all those little things stand out. And so right before the photo, I'll just straighten it out like that and then put the chain on, and there it is. That's all set. So let's see. I can show you guys how I put the chain on, or we can go on and do more stitching. I want to show adding thread, so I thought I would do that on this one. I can also show putting that loop on again with this sample too. So let's see how everyone's doing out there and what you want to see. I got a thumbs up from Sharon. Oh, thanks, Sharon. Yeah, and so yeah, oh yeah, I see what Cindy's saying. A beading awl would work for that. Oh yeah, that would be perfect. So based on like your guys' interest in seeing what to see next, I'm trying to figure out if I should just, why not go ahead and just throw the chain on here with some, I know a lot of you guys already know these steps, but so I can show a finished design. And then we'll do some more stuff. So I always have handy some bent nose pliers and some square nose. That's how I like to do my jump rings. And just open those up. And then for your lobster claw, you can really use any kind of clasp you'd like. I used, let's see what I used. I had these handy. Came in one of these little sets. So I'm gonna grab one of those. I did use the larger size for this one. This is the cuff, and that looks kind of nice with a cuff. The smaller one looks good too. I might change it, I'm not sure. We'll get that on there. So there's one side, and I'm going to grab my chain and open up a link on here. And then just close that up. And this is a lateral motion that I'm using to open and close the jumps and the chain. And then I'm gonna kind of like work hard on them to make them click together. And that seal is kind of important because you are against thread here, but with an oval jump ring like this chain has, I specifically chose ovals for my seed beading. I've got the seam up here. There's some things you can do. You can put a little bit of glue on the seam and just let it sit for a second. That will make it pretty good. And then also just make sure the seam's facing away from where your thread is, or, you know, go for some soldered chain. You can also go for soldered jump rings, put those on and then put your chain to that. So lots of different things you can do. This also makes it adjustable. If you have this kind of chain handy in your jewelry booth and you make cuffs like this for folks, they want to put it on and maybe it doesn't fit and they want an extender, you have this chain handy. You can just add links and take length off really easily. A lot of people don't want to have a long chain hanging. So I kind of prefer the ones you can open and close for that reason. Yeah, so there's the basic design. And then all the optional stuff that you see in the photos is me playing around with wire. So I grabbed a bunch of 22 gauge wire and I started to make little knotted head pins. And I started to attach charms. I dropped seed bead at the end of this one with a knotted head pin. So Sarah Lovecraft, she designs for Bead Alon and she has a bunch of classes on how to do those. If you literally Google knotted head pin, one of her classes will come up. I've tried it. It's either her or Meredith will pop up with the design. Yeah. So you'll see how to do that there if you want to see knotted head pins. That's probably the best way to do it, unless there's anyone who really wants me to jump in there and show it. But we could also do some, yeah.
Sorry, we do have a request to demonstrate adding more thread.
Adding more thread. Yeah, that's what I was thinking was more what we need to show, because there's already such great content out there for doing those head pins. All right, so I've got this one here and it actually has enough thread, but let's just pretend that it got really short. What I like to do with a design when I'm running out, I don't like to leave myself with less than about 10 inches to weave in. Well, it's just a preference, and that's not to say it doesn't happen occasionally where I might have one where I'm just, but what you find is the needle's kind of long, so you need to have at least enough room to maneuver. And you can always switch to like a short needle if you get really stuck. There's tricks you can do to get around it, but just generally, if you can leave yourself about 10 inches and stop there, it will help you with weaving in that piece later. So when I run out of thread, I leave my strand, my last working strand, I leave it in place. And then I come along with a new strand, and I'll work with a new color actually, so you can see them apart. I haven't done that before, but I feel like it would be kind of cool to see. So this is some blue Wildfire. And again, I'm gonna just flatten this end with my pliers. Come up through here. Fold over, same thing we did before. It's going to fold over so that you have a comfortable working length. And as far as where to enter the piece, pick a spot, any spot. Mine's a little short, and in a design where you've run out of thread, you probably have a little more going on, but just pick a row that's maybe at least 4 back from the one you're going to go and try to exit. Our goal is we're going to just kind of weave around until our tail stops moving. And then we're going to aim for where our old working thread was and start creating new rows. So let's just kind of pick a spot, any spot, leave a tail. We're going to watch that tail and get it to not move anymore when we pull on the working side. So right now it's moving pretty freely, but after a few turns, it won't anymore. Let's keep going through here. And all I'm doing right now is just following my existing thread path through. So everything that I did before, I'm doing again in the same spot. So let's test it. All I've done is just weave through like 4 beads. Herringbone's cool because the thread locks in pretty quick, but we still have a long way to go. See, it's still moving. I'm going to come over here. And here's where it really can help you lock in your thread. The step ups are very locking. So there's one there. And I'm just going to go back through this whole row. Or maybe at least just part of it. Let's see, go about halfway there and test it. Okay, so let's pull on this and see if this one over here moves. It's good. It's already really tight. So I feel like I can just aim for here now. And by the time we get over there, we'll have a really good lock in. So I need to be headed up. So let's go through the next bead. And again, this is all just kind of arbitrary, like wherever you are in the piece. The only rule is following the same thread path. And so I'm going to need to come over here and do a step up to get back to my other side. Now, the cool thing about herringbone is if you wanted to start building from the opposite side of where your last one was, you can. Especially if your pattern has some symmetry, like this one does. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to do a turn and head back. Because the weave in happened a little faster than I was expecting. I kind of thought with the size 8 beads that it might take me more than 2 rows, but it did not. It was so quick. And the thing about bead weaving is I think that it takes most of the patience and the time is in steps like this, and not necessarily even in creating the piece itself. That part tends to go faster than the little endings and the addings of thread and weaving in and putting your clasp on. Those seem to be the parts that take longer and the parts that really gobble up more of the energy.
Danielle, while you're there, if it's secure, would you show putting the loop on?
Yeah, with this side.
Yes, please.
Yeah, and so here I'm going to finish this last step part. And so now you see how my new thread has joined my old thread. That's all you got to do to add thread. So you're good. And I'm just going to trim that tail. It's securely woven in now, pushing down, pulling up with scissors. And so what I would do from here is I would start with my new thread and just keep stitching new rows. And after you have 4, maybe 5 rows, take a break with the old one, come back with the new one, sorry, come back to the old one and weave it up into the new rows. That will help preserve your flow. So like showing that piece again, where did it go? I've hidden it, but the design is going to be like more flexible if you are not doubling down your thread in one place. So for example, we did a lot of weaving in here. And so this is going to be just a smidge thicker than the rest of the work. If we were to take this old thread and weave it in there too, you'd have a stiff place in the design. And as you did this, there'd be a spot that just wouldn't bend as much. And it'd be okay. It wouldn't be the end of the world. But if you're going for like, you really want it to just be like snake-like, then maybe weaving the new rows first and then taking your old thread and doing that same thing we did here, weaving it up into your new rows it's a good tip that I've always kind of liked to follow. So let's put the end on. So this is our starting side, the one we just built together. And I'm going to flatten my end here and put a needle on it really quick. So this is our tail. This is our 12-inch tail that we left at the beginning for just for this purpose, so that we can have something to build our loop with. And again, I need to get to the center fork. So I'm going to go ahead and go down through. Now this was our laddered row. So the only real difference between the end row up there and this laddered row is you're going to probably feel easier going through both of the beads of that laddered row than going through just one. But so now I'm where I need to be. Let's get my 8 beads here, jumping over the center 2 and coming down through the one after that. And so there's our loop on that side. And yeah, I'll share one more trick actually while we're here. So the instructions will have you go back up through this one and then back down over here. But you'll notice because we're headed up in the opposite direction, doing this turn here, the step up might look a little different. So if you don't want to do it that way, there's one more thing you can do. You can grab one of these thread bridges. So let's look really closely at the piece. And you see how the rows that have begun down here have little bridges of thread on top of them? If you want to, so of course you can weave back, but you could also pick up one of those thread bridges. So I'm going to grab this one here. It doesn't really matter which side you go for. Just pick one and go for it. See the little thread bridge I'm picking up? It's the one that's above the column below. I could have grabbed the blue one, but I'm going to grab the purple one. I feel like it's a little closer to where I want to be. And pull up here and head back up through this one. And that also could be done on the other side too. I feel like on the finishing side though, that looping around we did served a purpose of reinforcing that end. So I would still recommend doing it that way on the finishing side, but on this side, if you want to, because this is a pretty solid area over here, you can just do that same trick. Let's pick up that thread bridge, the one that's above my purple column. And if you're having trouble getting it like I am, just kind of look at it under you have like a magnifier, or another way you could do it is just go in between them and come up around the back. And that's actually what I just did there, because I couldn't see it very well. And now I'm up through those two. Now let's go all the way around the loop. Yeah, I'm glad I showed that because I'd forgotten there's a little bit of an extra thing to show there. So that was a good call. And last but not least, this won't happen to you on this design because this design is using a size 8 seed bead. But if you were using 11s right now, you may be finding like, I can't get through these beads anymore. I just can't. And you want to reinforce your loop, but you can't get through them. You can use the thread bridges on top of your ladder row to do your turn. So what that would look like here, if I wanted to do it right now, I just came down through those white beads there. So that's where my thread is right now. I want to go through this thread bridge right here. So it's the one again above my purple column. You guys can see that one right there. You can use that to turn and do your loop too. And it's totally secure, especially since when we built that ladder row, we reinforced every bead. So it's really strong, and that's another way you can do it. And if you're ever really stuck, you can switch to a different size needle, but I'm going to pick up that thread bridge again. Go back through it again. So that's really, really reinforced on that side. And then from here, all I would do is just go weave in. So let's see, while I'm here, I've got another trick. If you're, again, having that problem where you can't get through the beads again, it won't happen on this. I can get through these no problem. But if you were, again, working with a size 11 design and you were stuck, but you were here where I am, and you need to weave in now, but you can't get through it, go ahead, go under that thread bridge again. And then go through the next one in the opposite direction. So I'm like doing like a snake stitch almost. And come up and do a step up again. That might save you from having to go through your ladder row again on a teeny one. The size 11 herringbones, they are so intricate and pretty, but you'll run into that. So that might help you at some point with getting stuck where you can't get through. And then from here, yeah, same thing. We like to do, just go ahead, weave in, and do that by just going through your existing thread path and trim it. So let's see, how are we doing? We're at, oh, wow. Well, that went super fast. I was expecting to have a little more time here at the end. So I tell you guys what, I will do another class on the odd count. We've done it before. If you really need to like see it now, you can go check out the blue point earrings that Cindy mentioned. Those were this stitch odd count in a cool little fringe design. We also have an even count fringe design we did with herringbone. That was those mosaic lavendery ones. All of those are on our blog. The PDFs are all there, patterns are there. And then of course we have a bunch of other Michael's classes that we did. Were one of the original videos we ever did for Michael's had a herringbone like filmed just doing this basic stitch. So many things out there. Any questions for me?
Danielle, I've been putting those links on the sidebar.
You have? Oh,
And,
that's awesome. That's cool.
You probably have forgotten, but you actually did a video for Michael's, about a 7-minute video just on herringbone. And so I reposted that one. So that will be helpful for anyone who doesn't want to wait till Monday to see the video again.
Perfect. Yeah, that was a fun one too. I think I remember the little whales and lighthouses on it. It was Arctic circles.
Yes.
It's one of the first videos like we ever did.
Danielle, the Arctic Circle video, it seems like a long time ago, but you only taught it a year ago.
Oh, really?
Yes. I just checked the date on YouTube.
Oh, wow. Gosh, I feel like it was longer. That's funny. Well, hey, so should I show next week and
Yes,
the stuff coming up?
please.
Yeah,
Danielle, we do have a few new people today, and
welcome.
I did want to give you a few minutes to just explain to people why you have 3 similar looking classes and why you picked the beads to work together leading up to the premium class.
Yeah, because we wanted to do a beginner series that shows you guys all of the things that we would usually put together, you know, as separate classes, but I did them all in the same beads so you could see them all and you could see what the stitches look like. So you've got the same exact beads made in different ways, and it gives you kind of cool visual of what they can all look like. And so next week, we're doing peyote stitch, even count peyote. So anyone new to peyote, this is the class. We're going to do a really easy color block of even count peyote. And then this class has some bells and whistles, some extras. We're going to show how to do these loops. We're going to talk a little bit about patterns. And there's a do-it-yourself pattern, blank pattern in the PDF that you can color in and make your own designs. And I let my son do a design, and this was his that he sketched. He colored it with pencils and crayons, and then I stitched it up for him. So that's something that we will share in class. It's like how you can do that. And then of course, we have a workshop. So every month we have one workshop, which is like a 2-hour class. And that one, we're doing a bubble ladder. And this is kind of a combination of ladder stitch and square stitch that integrates the bugles and the seed beads we've been using, and then does a little finish on it. So this one, the thread path on this is unusual and kind of cool. Like it's made all in one swoop. It looks like it might be different pieces to those of you that do this kind of work. You're like, oh, that's laddered, but then how? But the thread path is super weird. So I think you'll enjoy it. And it was a really fun one to make. And this is another one that has that potential to inspire other ideas, because of the method of construction will inspire you to come up with different stuff. So that's the rest of September. And then October kicks off. We're going to do some herringbone again, but we're going to like add a bunch of stuff to it. So, and it's different beads for October. But this is herringbone again, but with a mix up of size. You're looking at some size 10, some size 8, and some size 6 all together. And then we've done a little pop. So you know how like on a pilled sweater or like an old coat, there's like a little bead that sticks up. I'm going to show you guys how I did that. And it's kind of, it's the idea of adding a bead in between your column to get it to kind of have like a texture or a height to it. I'll show you how I did that. I'll do it with different colors for class so you can really see it. For this one, I was just going for, in a photograph, this is much more, like you can see it more strikingly than you can here on the Zoom. We have some photos of this coming up that I'll post. And of course, it's on the website and you can see it there. And so then we're going to do a netted rope. And this one is made with a size 10 seed beads and size 6.0. And it's just a really cool design. And it's something that I thought was really fun to share. And we finished it in a unique way. So we'll share that. The workshop for the end of October is going to be 1, 2, 3 drop peyote. So it's an even count, staying with the even count, but with different spacing. So you can get a really cool look with different colors. I did it with size 8 and with size 10 beads. And so those, we'll show how to do all that in the workshop at the end of October. And that's all I've got currently. I'm working on November. I'll have those done soon. And we'll share those as well next time.
Danielle, your timing is perfect. We did have a couple questions in the sidebar today about our special unboxing class in October.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to say a few words about that.
Yeah, I do. So each of the ones I showed you for October and the one on my wrist features our new 3-pack palettes. They are intermittently coming out at stores right now. And I didn't check today, but as of yesterday, I hadn't seen them quite online yet. I think they will be there before that week when we start class. But the week before class, I'm going to send out alternates like, hey, if the palettes aren't in your store yet or they aren't popping up online, I'm going to create a list of colors that are currently on the wall that you can use. So there'll be a way you can build it. But I am excited about these packs because John Bead and Carmi and I, we worked together on creating these palettes. So these are our colors that we did. Like we made them and literally she was like putting seed beads in the tubes and we're looking at them on the wall and we were going back and forth with that. So that was a really fun, close to our heart project that seeing it like out there is going to be like, we're excited. So I don't know if you want to say anything, Carmi, but I was excited about it.
Danielle, I agree. And you know what? The best thing about the 3-pack palettes that are coming out are some really unusual colors that normally are not on the wall. And they are packs of 3. And for the people who are asking on the sidebar, yes, Danielle's going to have a new backdrop because there are 56 palettes to choose from. So she's about to get a brand new wall behind her of new color seed beads.
Yeah, so I gotta do that. I actually have to like.
Danielle has them all, but
they're all here.
See them all in the unboxing.
Yeah, so I'm excited to share those with you guys. I hope you will love them because we had a lot of fun putting those together, and it's been a long time. We were working on those. Like, I have no measure of time, but it feels like it was a long time we've been working on it. So,
yes,
yeah. All right, so yeah, of course, as always, if you want to tag us when you create your jewelry, we love seeing what you make. So if you hashtag John Bead and make it with Michael's, and we always like to share it and share you on. And you can find me at Danielle Wickes Jewelry with questions. And I usually try to get back to you within 24 hours with questions about the design or, questions about future designs, ideas, all of it. So I want to wish you guys a great weekend and happy creativity. And I can't wait to see what you make. Bye, guys.